Ambassador Veltar stood on the observation deck of the Crystal Heart, watching his homeworld burn. The elegant spires of New Zephyr, built from living crystal that had grown for thousands of years, cracked and fell under the endless rain of plasma fire. Each explosion sent waves of pain through his translucent skin, as if the destruction was happening to his own body. The Korthik ships hung in the sky like giant metal insects, their dark hulls blocking out the gentle light of Zephyr's twin suns. They had come without warning, without reason, bringing nothing but death and destruction to worlds that had known only peace. "Ambassador," whispered Keeper Lyra, her voice like wind through crystal chimes. "The other colonies are falling. Serenity Prime has gone silent. The gardens of Peaceful Valley are gone." Veltar closed his large, gentle eyes. The Zephyrian Collective had been built on the idea that all thinking beings could live in harmony. They had no weapons, no armies, no concept of war. Their greatest achievement had been the Great Symphony, where 17 different species had learned to sing together across the stars. Now those songs were ending in screams. "How many survivors?" Veltar asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Perhaps 2 billion across all our worlds," Lyra said, her voice breaking. Down from 12 billion just 7 cycles ago. The numbers hit Veltar like a physical blow. His people were dying, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The Korthik were too strong, too cruel, too efficient at killing. "Sir," came another voice. Communications Officer Therion rushed into the chamber, his normally perfect posture bent with exhaustion and fear. "The Korthik have sent another message." Veltar nodded for him to continue, though he was tired of hearing the Korthik demands for surrender. "They say we have 1 more day cycle to give up all our research on crystal technology and bioharmonics. If we refuse, they will start killing civilians by the millions." The research the Korthik wanted represented thousands of years of peaceful discovery. The Zephyrians had learned to grow cities that lived and breathed, to heal worlds damaged by others, to create technology that worked with nature instead of against it. In the wrong hands, that knowledge could be turned into weapons beyond imagination. "What does the Council say?" Veltar asked. "They are split," Therion replied. "Half want to give the Korthik what they want to save lives. Half say, we cannot let such knowledge be used for evil." Veltar understood both sides. Save lives now or prevent greater suffering later. It was an impossible choice for a people who had never learned to think about such terrible decisions. "Sir," Lyra said softly, "perhaps we should try the emergency protocol." The emergency protocol. Veltar had hoped it would never come to that. It was a plan created in the early days of the Collective, when they first ventured into space and realized not all beings shared their peaceful nature. A desperate plea for help broadcast to every corner of known space. "Are you certain?" Veltar asked. "Once we send that message, we cannot take it back. We will be announcing our weakness to the entire galaxy." "With respect, Ambassador," Therion said, "our weakness is already known. The Korthik have made sure of that." Veltar looked out at his dying world one more time. In the distance, he could see Korthik ground forces moving through the crystal forests, destroying everything beautiful his people had created over millennia. They killed not just to conquer, but because they enjoyed the act of destroying peaceful things. "Do it," he said finally. "Send the message." The 3 Zephyrians moved to the communications center of the Crystal Heart. The equipment was grown rather than built. Living crystal formations that could reach across the galaxy in moments. Therion began the process of opening a channel to every known civilization. "What should we say?" he asked. Veltar thought carefully. The message had to be simple enough for any species to understand, but desperate enough to make them care about strangers they had never met. "This is Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Collective," he began. his voice carrying across space to thousands of different worlds. "We are under attack by the Korthik Empire. Our people are dying. Our worlds are burning. We have no weapons, no armies, no way to defend ourselves." He paused, gathering strength for the hardest part. "We call upon any civilized species capable of providing military assistance. We know we have no right to ask for help from strangers, but we are desperate. In exchange for aid, we offer our most valuable knowledge and all our resources. We do not seek revenge against our enemies, only the chance for our people to live in peace once more." Therian sent the message racing across the galaxy at faster than light speed. Within hours, it would reach every major civilization, every trading post, every colony that had achieved spaceflight. Then they waited. The first responses came quickly, but none brought hope. The Altarian Republic sent sympathy, but said they could not risk war with the Korthik. The Mechanical Collective offered to preserve Zephyrian culture in their databanks after the extinction. The Star Kingdom of Velos suggested the Zephyrians simply surrender and hope for mercy. Message after message brought the same answer. No one was willing to fight the Korthik Empire. No one wanted to risk their own people for strangers, no matter how desperate the plea. Hours passed. The Korthik deadline grew closer. Valtar began to accept that his people would either die fighting or live as slaves. Both options felt like death. Then, just as he was about to give up hope, Therian looked up from his station with surprise. "Sir," he said, "we have one more response." "Let me guess," Valtar said, bitterly. More sympathy and empty words. "No, sir," Therian said, his voice filled with confusion. "This one is different." "How different?" "It just says, help is coming. The message comes from a world called Earth in the Sol system. I have never heard of them." Valtar checked their star charts. The Sol system was marked as unexplored territory in the far edge of the galaxy, near the galactic rim where few civilized beings bothered to travel. "Are they a major civilization?" Liara asked. "I do not think so," Therian replied. "They call themselves humans. No military records, no trade agreements, no diplomatic contacts. As far as our databases show, they achieved spaceflight only recently. Then why would they help us when powerful empires will not?" Valtar wondered. The answer to that question would have to wait. For now, they had one small hope in a galaxy that had turned its back on them. It would have to be enough. 3 days later, Valtar stood in the main docking bay of the Crystal Heart, trying to calm his racing pulse. The human ships had arrived exactly when they said they would, dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of Zephyrian territory like they owned the stars. Themselves, their fleet was not what anyone expected. Where Zephyrian vessels grew like living things, smooth and flowing, the human ships looked like they had been built for war. Angular hulls covered in metal plating, weapon ports that did not try to hide what they were, and strange markings that hurt to look at directly. "Are you sure about this?" Keeper Liara whispered beside him. A normally steady voice shook with worry. "We know nothing about these humans except that they come from the galactic rim." "We know they answered our call when no one else would," Valtar replied, though he shared her concerns. The human ships looked dangerous in a way that made his peaceful soul uncomfortable. The docking tube connected with a soft chime, and Valtar felt his breath catch. In moments, he would meet the beings who claimed they could fight the Korthik Empire. The airlock opened. The first human through was a female. Though Valtar had to guess at that, since human biology was completely alien to him. She was short by Zephyrian standards, barely reaching his shoulder, but something about her presence filled the entire docking bay. Her skin was dark brown, marked with scars that spoke of violence survived. Her hair was black and cut short in a practical style that suggested function over beauty, but it was her eyes that made Valtar step backward. They faced forward like a predator's eyes. They moved constantly, taking in every detail of the docking bay, every Zephyrian present, every possible threat or advantage. When they focused on Veltar, he felt like prey being studied by a hunter. "Ambassador Veltar?" the human asked. Her voice was harsh compared to the musical tones of Zephyrian speech. "I am Admiral Sarah Chun of the Earth Defense Force. We came as fast as we could." Veltar tried to remember his diplomatic training, but everything he had learned was about dealing with civilized beings who valued peace and harmony. This human radiated controlled violence like heat from a star. "Admiral Chun," he managed to say, offering the traditional Zephyrian greeting of open palms. "We are grateful that you answered our call. I must admit, we are curious about your world. Our databases show no record of Earth or humanity in our diplomatic archives." Chun smiled, and Veltar saw that her teeth were designed for tearing flesh. "We are not much for diplomacy," she said. "We prefer to let our actions speak." Behind Chun came more humans, and each one looked like they had been built for fighting. Thick bones, dense muscle, scars that told stories of battles won and lost. They moved with a coordination that spoke of military training, but also with a casual alertness that suggested they expected danger anywhere. "Anytime. Perhaps we could speak privately," Veltar suggested, leading the human delegation to a conference room grown from living crystal. The walls were transparent, allowing soft light to flow through in patterns that usually brought peace to visitors. The humans seemed unimpressed by the beauty around them. They sat in chairs that had been designed for much larger beings, looking small, but somehow taking up more space than their size suggested. "Tell me about your world," Veltar asked, hoping to understand what kind of people had come to help them. "Earth?" Chun shrugged, a gesture that seemed to carry significant meaning among her people. "Gravity is about standard. Oxygen, nitrogen, atmosphere, mostly water with some land masses. Temperature ranges from -40 to +50 in most habitable areas." Veltar felt his blood turn cold. Those conditions would kill most spacefaring species within minutes. "Admiral," he said carefully, "those environmental conditions would classify your world as a Class 12 death world. How do your people survive in such an environment?" Chun looked confused. "Class 12? We just call it home. The weather is pretty mild most of the time." "Mild?" Lyra whispered. "Those temperatures would freeze or cook most known life forms." "Really?" One of the other humans spoke up, a male with red hair and green predator eyes. "What kind of temperature ranges do your people prefer?" "Safe temperatures range from 15 to 25 degrees, Veltar answered. "Anything outside that range becomes dangerous very quickly." The humans exchanged looks that Veltar could not interpret. "That is a pretty narrow range," Chun said. "On Earth, we have people living comfortably in places where the temperature stays below zero for months, and others living in deserts where it gets above 40 degrees every day." Veltar tried to process this information. These beings lived in conditions that would be deadly to his people, and they called it normal. "What about your gravity?" he asked. 1G, Chun replied. "Standard. That is twice the gravity of our homeworld," Lyra said, her voice barely audible. "How do you even move?" "You get used to it," Chun said with another shrug. "Keeps us in shape." Veltar was beginning to understand why the humans looked so dense and muscular. They had evolved in an environment that would crush most civilized beings. "Admiral," he said slowly, "I need to ask you directly. Can your people actually fight the Korthic Empire? They are considered one of the most dangerous military forces in the galaxy." Chun leaned forward, and her predator eyes fixed on Veltar with an intensity that made him want to run. "Ambassador," she said, "let me tell you something about humans. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. Ice ages, plagues, predators, natural disasters, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions. Most species would have gone extinct a dozen times over. We just got stronger. She stood up, and despite her small size, she seemed to fill the room with her presence. We have been fighting and surviving for millions of years before we ever knew there were stars, let alone other people living around them. War is not something we learn from books or databases. It is written into our DNA. But the Korthik have conquered hundreds of worlds, Veltar protested. Their bioships are evolved killing machines. Good, Chun said, and her smile was terrifying. We like a challenge. The red-haired human spoke up again. Admiral, should we show them the combat footage from the Rigel incident? Not yet, Martinez, Chun replied. Let us save the surprises for the Korthik. Veltar did not know what the Rigel incident was, but the way the humans spoke about it made his skin crawl. Admiral, he said, I must ask, if your people are so dangerous, how do we know you will not simply conquer us after you defeat the Korthik? Chen looked genuinely surprised by the question. Ambassador, you called for help. We came to help. That is what we do. But surely you want something in return. Territory, resources, technology? We want you to be safe, Chun said simply. That is enough. Veltar stared at her, trying to understand. These beings came from a world that would kill him in minutes. They were clearly evolved predators. They spoke of war like it was as natural as breathing. That they had traveled across the galaxy to help strangers, asking nothing in return. I do not understand your people, he admitted. You do not need to, Chum replied. You just need to trust that when someone asks for help, humans answer. It is who we are. She stood up, and the other humans followed her lead. We should begin planning our assault on the Korthik positions, she said. How much time do we have before their deadline? 18 standard hours, Veltar answered. More than enough, Chum said. We will have this finished by dinner. As the humans left to prepare for battle, Veltar remained in his chair, trying to process what he had just learned. His people had called for civilized help and received apex predators instead. He was not sure if that was the best thing that could have happened, or the most terrifying. War Prince Sekthar stretched his forearms and examined the tactical display showing the orbital space around Lumina Prime, the Zephyrian colony. World hung below his massive bioship like a ripe fruit waiting to be picked. In 6 more hours, his deadline would expire, and he could begin the final phase of cleansing this system of its weak inhabitants. The Korthik had evolved for war. Their bodies were living weapons, their ships were grown rather than built, and their entire culture existed to consume and destroy weaker species. Sekthar had personally conquered 17 different civilizations, and the pattern was always the same. First came fear, then desperate messages begging for mercy, then final surrender when they realized no help was coming. War Prince, hissed his communications specialist. We are detecting new ships entering the system. Let me guess, Sekthar said with amusement. The Altarian Republic has finally grown a spine? Or perhaps the Velos Kingdom thinks their pre-energy weapons can scratch our hulls? Unknown contacts, my lord. The ships do not match any known configuration in our databases. Sekthar looked up with interest. That was unusual. The Korthik had detailed files on every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy. Their military intelligence was perfect. Show me. He commanded. The tactical display zoomed out to show the edge of the system. 12 ships had appeared there, small by Korthik standards, but moving with purpose toward Lumina Prime. They looked crude, like someone had taken metal plates and welded them together without caring about beauty or elegance. Analysis? Sekthar asked. Primitive construction, War Prince. Likely early space technology. No match for our bioships. Sekthar studied the approaching vessels. They moved in a formation he had never seen before, spreading out but maintaining communication links. More importantly, they showed no signs of slowing down or trying to negotiate. Have they responded to our standard surrender demands? No, my lord. They have not responded to any communications. Interesting. Most civilized species at least tried to talk before they died. These newcomers seem to be planning something else entirely. Very well, Zetar said. We will give them a demonstration of Korthic power. Deploy the outer hunter packs. Kill half of them quickly. Leave the rest alive long enough to scream for mercy. 40 Korthic bioships moved to intercept the human fleet. Each one was a living creature bred for space combat with acidic weaponry, self-healing hulls, and predatory intelligence built into their nervous systems. They had never lost a battle. Zekthar settled back to watch the entertainment. The battle began when the Korthic hunter ships opened fire at maximum range. Bioplasma cannons designed to melt through any known armor sent streams of corrosive energy toward the human vessels. The humans did something no civilized species had ever done in the face of Korthic bioweapons. They accelerated directly into the attack. What are they doing? Zekthar demanded, watching his tactical display with growing confusion. Are their navigation systems damaged? Instead of trying to avoid the plasma streams or retreat to safe distance, the human ships were flying straight into the most dangerous area of the battlefield. 3 of them took direct hits, their crude metal hulls melting under the bioplasma assault. But instead of dying, the damaged ships kept fighting. Their crews somehow continued to operate weapons and engines, even as sections of their vessels were being eaten away by Korthic bioweapons. Impossible, whispered Zekthar's tactical officer. Those ships should be dead. No one can survive direct bioplasma exposure. The humans answered that assumption by having one of their damaged vessels rammed directly into a Korthic hunter ship. Both vessels exploded in a ball of fire and twisted metal, but the human crew had somehow managed to fire their weapons until the very moment of impact. They are insane, Zekthar said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. In all his battles, he had never seen anyone choose suicide attacks over surrender. The remaining human ships closed the distance with the Korthic forces, and that was when the real surprise began. The humans opened fire with weapons that no civilized species used anymore. Simple kinetic projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds. The Korthic bioships were designed to heal from energy weapons and bioattacks. They had no defense against chunks of metal moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles punched through their living hulls like they were made of paper. War Prince, his tactical officer called out in panic. We have lost 6 hunter ships. The humans are using primitive kinetic weapons. Impossible. No one has used kinetic weapons in space combat for thousands of years. The humans, apparently, did not get that message, my lord. Zekthar watched in growing horror as his perfectly evolved bioships were torn apart by what amounted to thrown rocks. The humans seemed to have no respect for the proper way to conduct space warfare. But the real shock came when the human ships moved in close for boarding actions. Sir, his communications officer called out. We are receiving a transmission from Hunter Pack 7. What do they report? They say the humans are boarding their ships, War Prince. They are fighting hand-to-hand combat. Zekthar felt his blood turn cold. Hand-to-hand combat was considered barbaric by every civilized species in the galaxy. It simply was not done. Put me through to Hunter Pack 7. He commanded. The transmission was filled with sounds that chilled Zekthar to his core. Korthic warrior screams, the sound of metal tearing, and something else, human voices, calm and determined even in the middle of desperate battle. This is Pack Leader Mortok, came a panicked voice. The humans have breached our hull. They are fighting in our corridors. They do not die. We hit them with biotoxins and they keep fighting. We cut them and they keep fighting. What are these creatures? Use sonic weapons, Zekthar ordered. Disorient them and then finish them. We tried that. The sonic attacks do not affect them. They seem immune to most of our biological weapons. The transmission cut off in a burst of static and screaming. Zekthar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Hunter Pack 7 had gone dark. An entire Korthic bioship, crewed by some of the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy, had been taken by a handful of primitive humans. War Prince, his tactical officer said quietly, should we call for reinforcements? Reinforcements? Zekthar roared. We are the Korthic Empire. We do not need help to deal with 12 primitive ships. But even as he said it, he was watching more of his hunter packs disappear from the tactical display. The humans seemed to have an unlimited willingness to sacrifice themselves, but more than that, they appeared to be nearly impossible to kill. Analysis of human physiology, he demanded. Unknown War Prince. They do not match any known species profile. Dense bone structure, redundant organ systems, and apparent immunity to most standard bioweapons. Also, they seem to be adapted for extreme environmental conditions. What kind of conditions? High gravity, toxic atmosphere, extreme temperatures, and constant threat of predation, my lord. Their homeworld appears to be what our databases classify as a Class 12 death world. Zekthar felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest. Fear. Deathworlders were a myth, a story told to frighten young Korthok warriors. The idea that a species could evolve on a planet so dangerous that it would kill any normal life form was considered impossible by most galactic scientists. But here, they were, tearing through his forces like they had been bred for nothing but war and death. All ships, he commanded, concentrate fire on the remaining human vessels. Kill them all, now. The order came too late. The last human ship, badly damaged and leaking atmosphere, had somehow gotten close enough to target Zekthar's flagship. As he watched in horror, a small craft launched from the human vessel and attached itself to his hull. Sir, his security chief called out, we have boarders. They have cut through our outer armor. Zekthar drew his ceremonial combat claws and prepared for battle. He was 8 feet tall, bred for warfare, and had never lost in personal combat. These humans might be tough, but he was Korthic elite. The door to his command center exploded inward. Through the smoke stepped a single human female. She was tiny, compared to Zekthar, barely reaching his chest, and she looked like she had been through a meat grinder. Her uniform was torn. She was bleeding from multiple wounds, and her left arm hung useless at her side. But her eyes, those terrible predator eyes, were focused on Zekthar with absolute determination. I am Admiral Sarah Chun, she said calmly, drawing a simple metal knife. You have been attacking innocent people. That ends now. Zekthar laughed, though it sounded forced even to his own ears. You would challenge me with that primitive weapon, little human? I would, Chun replied. Zekthar struck with all his speed and strength, 4 arms moving in perfect coordination to tear this insolent creature apart. Chun was faster. The battle that followed would be talked about in whispers throughout the Korthic Empire for generations to come. A human female, injured and armed with nothing but a metal blade, somehow defeated their greatest war prince in single combat. When it was over, Chun stood over Zekthar's body and spoke into her communicator. This is Admiral Chun. Lumina Prime is secure. All Korthic forces in this system are neutralized. Through the ship's communication system, every surviving Korthic heard her next words. The news of Zekthar's defeat spread through the Korthak Empire like wildfire. For the first time in 1,000 years, one of their war princes had been killed in single combat by an alien. Not just any alien, but a tiny creature from some unknown world at the edge of the galaxy. Empress Vexhara felt the rage. building in her ancient chest as she studied the reports from Lumina Prime. The humans had not just won a battle. They had humiliated the Korthic military machine in ways that threatened the very foundation of the Empire. "Explain to me again," she hissed to her intelligence chief, "how 12 primitive ships destroyed an entire hunter fleet." Intelligence Chief Karmath trembled before answering. The Empress had ruled for over 3 centuries, and her displeasure was legendary. "The humans use tactics we have never encountered, Majesty. They seem to prefer close combat and boarding actions. They sacrifice their own ships without hesitation. Most disturbing, they appear to be immune to our bioweapons." "Immune? Our toxins have no effect on them. Our sonic disruptors do not impair their fighting ability. They can survive in hard vacuum for extended periods. They continue fighting even with injuries that would kill any normal species." Vexhara studied the tactical recordings from the battle. The humans moved and fought like nothing she had ever seen. They treated warfare like a natural function, as easy as breathing. "What is their home world like?" "According to our scouts, it is a Class 12 death world, Majesty. Gravity twice normal standard. Toxic oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere. Extreme temperature variations and constant geological instability. Impossible. Nothing intelligent can evolve on a Class 12 world." "Apparently something can, Majesty. The humans call their world Earth and consider its conditions normal." Vexhara felt something cold in her stomach. In 3 centuries of conquest, she had never encountered a species that frightened her. But these humans were different. They came from a world that would kill her in minutes, and they fought like they enjoyed the experience. "Prepare the Grand Armada," she commanded. "I will deal with these humans personally." "Majesty, is that wise?" "They are only 12 ships. 12 ships that destroyed one of our best hunter fleets," Vexhara replied. "We will take no chances. I want 500 bioships, our best warriors, and enough firepower to burn their entire species from existence." "Yes, Majesty." "When do we depart?" "Now, and send a message to the humans. Tell them their interference has earned them the personal attention of the Korthic Empress. They will learn what happens when inferior species challenge their betters." 3 days later, the Korthic Grand Armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyrian home system. 500 bioships, each one a living weapon evolved for maximum destruction, spread across space in a formation that had conquered 1,000 worlds. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the human flagship, studying the massive Korthic fleet through the viewscreen. Her ship was one of only 8 remaining human vessels, the others having been lost or damaged in the fighting at Lumina Prime. "Admiral," Commander Martinez said quietly, "we are outnumbered 60 to 1. "I noticed," Chun replied calmly. "Recommendations?" "Run," Martinez said. "Live to fight another day." Chun smiled. "Not an option, Martinez. The Zephyrians are counting on us. Besides, when has being outnumbered ever stopped humans?" "Never, but this is a little extreme even for us. Then, we will have to be creative." Chun activated the fleet communication system and spoke to the crews of all 8 remaining human ships. "People, this is Admiral Chun. The Korthic Empress has brought her best forces to finish what we started. They think numbers will give them victory. They are wrong." She paused, looking at the tactical display showing the massive enemy fleet. "We are going to do something that has never been attempted in the history of space warfare. We are going to use this system's gas giant as our ally. The storm layers of Tempest will provide cover and camouflage, but more than that, they will become our weapons." "Admiral," came a voice from one of the other ships, "the radiation and pressure down there will kill us." "No," Chun said firmly. "The radiation and pressure will hide us. Remember, we come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. A little bad weather is not going to stop us now. The human fleet dove toward Tempest, the massive gas giant that dominated the inner system. Behind them, the Korthic Armada followed with confident precision. Empress. Vexhara watched from her command throne as the human ships disappeared into the gas giant's upper atmosphere. Foolish, she said with satisfaction. They have trapped themselves. The atmospheric pressure will crush their ships within the hour. Should we pursue them, Majesty? No need. We will wait for their ships to implode, then collect the debris for study. But the hours passed, and no debris appeared. The human ships had vanished into the storm-wrapped depths of Tempest without a trace. Empress, her tactical officer reported. We are detecting strange readings from the gas giant. What kind of readings? Energy discharges, Majesty. Very large ones. Before Vexhara could respond, something impossible happened. A bolt of lightning larger than most space stations erupted from Tempest's atmosphere and struck one of the Korthic bioships. The massive vessel simply vanished in a flash of electrical fire. What was that? Vexhara screamed. Unknown, Majesty. The gas giant should not be able to generate that kind of discharge. Another lightning bolt lanced out from Tempest, and another Korthic ship died. Then another. The atmospheric storms of the gas giant seemed to have turned into a weapon. It is impossible. Vexhara raged. Planets do not fight in space battles. Deep within Tempest's atmosphere, Admiral Chun smiled as she watched the tactical display. The human ships had descended to the edge of the gas giant's metallic hydrogen layer, using the tremendous pressure and electromagnetic fields to hide from Korthic sensors. Engineering. Report, she commanded. Electromagnetic tap is functioning perfectly, Admiral, came the reply. We are drawing power directly from the planet's magnetic field and using the atmospheric metallic hydrogen as a conductor. We can channel lightning strikes anywhere within 1,000,000 kilometers. Weapons. Target the largest Korthic ships. Make each shot count. The humans had turned Tempest itself into a massive weapon. The gas giant's own electromagnetic field became their power source, its atmospheric layers their camouflage, and its lightning storms their ammunition. Vexhara watched her grand armada being picked apart by a planet that had somehow learned to fight back. All ships, retreat to safe distance, she commanded, but the humans were not finished. As the Korthic fleet pulled back, the human vessels emerged from Tempest's atmosphere like demons rising from the storm. They moved in formation through the gas giant's ring system, using chunks of ice and rock as cover. Admiral, Commander Martinez reported. The Korthic are trying to reorganize at the edge of the system. Not acceptable, Chun replied. Time for Phase 2. All ships, prepare for ring bombardment. The human fleet had spent their time in Tempest's atmosphere, doing more than just hiding. They had been attaching propulsion systems to asteroids in the planet's ring system, turning cosmic debris into guided missiles, hundreds of ice and rock chunks. Each one the size of a city block suddenly accelerated toward the Korthic fleet. The bioships tried to shoot down the incoming projectiles, but there were too many of them moving too fast. The makeshift asteroid bombardment tore through the Korthic formation like bullets through paper. Bioships that had survived 1,000 battles were cracked open by flying chunks of ice moving at incredible speeds. This is impossible, Vexhara shrieked. They are using the entire system as a weapon. Majesty, her tactical officer said in a terrified whisper, we have lost over half our fleet. We should retreat. Retreat? Vexhara roared. The Korthic Empire does not retreat. But even as she said it, she was watching more of her ships die. The humans fought like they had been born to war, using everything around them as weapons. They turned planets into artillery, asteroids into missiles, and the void of space itself into an advantage. "All remaining ships," she commanded, her voice tight with rage. "Concentrate all fire on the gas giant. If we cannot defeat these humans, we will destroy their hiding place." The surviving Korthic bioships turned their weapons toward Tempest itself, sending streams of bioplasma into the gas giant's atmosphere. It was a mistake. The plasma fire interacted with Tempest's electromagnetic field in ways the Korthic had not anticipated. The entire planet began to discharge massive electrical storms, sending lightning in all directions. Several Korthic ships were caught in the electrical chaos and destroyed by their own reflected weapons fire. Admiral Chun seized the opportunity. "All ships, final assault. Target the Empress's flagship." The 8 remaining human vessels emerged from the ring system in perfect formation, flying directly toward Vexhar's massive command ship. They had no shields, limited weapons, and were outnumbered by hundreds. But they had something the Korthic had never faced before: the absolute refusal to accept defeat. The final battle was brief and brutal. Human ships rammed into Korthic vessels when their weapons failed. Human crews continued fighting even as their ships died around them. They used debris as weapons, turned their own exploding vessels into guided missiles, and fought with a ferocity that defied all logic. 6 months after the Battle of Tempest, Ambassador Veltar stood before the Galactic Council on the neutral world of Harmony Station. The Great Chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species, all of them trying to understand what had happened to the established order of the galaxy. The Korthic Empire, which had terrorized civilized space for over a millennium, had simply vanished. Not destroyed, vanished. After their defeat at Tempest, the surviving Korthic forces had retreated to the farthest edge of known space and gone silent. Some reports suggested they had fled beyond the galactic rim entirely, too afraid to risk another encounter with the humans. The Council recognizes Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Collective, announced the speaker, a tall being from the ancient ethereal species. Veltar approached the central podium, his transparent skin still showing the stress patterns from those terrible days when his people faced extinction. But now there was something else in his appearance: hope. "Honored Council," he began, his musical voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "I come before you to speak of the humans of Earth and what their intervention has meant for the galaxy." A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. The humans had become the most talked-about species in known space, though very few beings had actually encountered them directly. "Many of you have heard stories," Veltar continued. "Some call them myths, others call them propaganda. I am here to tell you that every story you have heard is likely true, and probably understates the reality." He activated a holographic display showing the aftermath of the battles for Zephyr in space. "When my people called for aid, we expected civilized response from civilized species. Military advisors, perhaps. Technology transfers. Diplomatic intervention. What we received instead were warriors from a world that the galactic classification system labels as uninhabitable." The hologram showed human ships moving through the wreckage of the Korthic fleet, searching for survivors to rescue, even Korthic survivors. "The humans did not come for conquest," Veltar said. "They did not come for resources or territory or technology. They came because someone needed help, and in their words, that is what humans do." Representative Thylon of the Altarian Republic raised a tentacle for permission to speak. "Ambassador Veltar, surely you understand our concerns. These humans are clearly a military threat beyond anything the galaxy has seen. How do we know they will not become the next great threat to peaceful species?" Veltar had expected this question. "Because, Representative Thylon, I have lived among them for the past 6 months. I have seen how they treat those under their protection." The hologram changed to show scenes from Zephyrian worlds in the aftermath of liberation. Human engineering. Teams working alongside Zephyrian crystal growers to rebuild damaged cities. Human medical personnel treating wounded civilians with technology that seemed impossibly advanced. Human teachers showing Zephyrian children how to defend themselves without losing their peaceful nature. The humans have a concept they call adoption, Veltar explained. When they decide you are family, they will die before they let harm come to you. The Zephyrian collective has been adopted by Earth. We are under their protection, and they ask nothing in return except that we remain true to our peaceful nature. That is all very touching, interrupted Representative Vorgak of the Mechanical Collective. But what about their military capabilities? Our analysis suggests they could conquer the entire galaxy if they chose to. Veltar nodded. You are correct. Admiral Chun showed me their strategic capabilities during the Reconstruction period. Earth has been monitoring galactic communications for decades. They know the location of every major civilization, every military installation, every trade route. If they wanted to conquer the galaxy, they could probably do it in less than a standard year. Silence fell over the chamber as the implications of that statement sank in. However, Veltar continued, conquest is not their nature. Protection is. They are predators, yes, but they hunt those who threaten the innocent. They are warriors, but they fight for others, not for themselves. Representative Kethara of the Sylvian Federation stood up. All of this is speculation. How can we be sure? These humans will not change their minds? Before Veltar could answer, a new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. Because that is not who we are. Every head in the chamber turned to see Admiral Chun walking down the center aisle. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations except a small patch showing the blue and green world that was Earth. Too human. Officers flanked her, but the small delegation looked overwhelmed by the hundreds of alien beings surrounding them. Admiral Chun, the speaker said, clearly surprised. We were not expecting human representation at this session. We were not invited, Chun replied calmly. But we heard there were concerns about our intentions. We thought it would be better to address them directly. She approached the central podium, and Veltar noted how every being in the chamber unconsciously moved back from her. Even walking calmly in a diplomatic setting, the Admiral radiated the controlled danger that marked all humans. Honored delegates, Chun began, I understand your fears. Humans are different from any species you have encountered. We come from a world that most of you cannot even visit without dying. We evolved fighting for survival every single day for millions of years. We are, by any reasonable standard, apex predators. She paused, looking around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces watching her. But predators protect their territory, and we have decided that this galaxy is our territory now. Not to rule over, but to protect. Representative Thyland spoke up. Admiral, you speak of protection, but your methods are extreme. The destruction of the Korthik fleet was total. Yes, Chun agreed. We do not believe in half measures when innocent lives are at stake. The Korthik chose to prey on peaceful species. We chose to stop them, permanently. But what gives you the right to make such decisions? Chun's expression hardened slightly. The same right that any person has when they see someone being hurt and have the power to stop it. We do not need permission to help people. Representative Vorgak interjected. Your capabilities far exceed anything the galaxy has seen. How do we know you will not decide that other species need your protection, whether they want it or not? Because, Chun said simply, we asked the Zephyrians if they wanted our help before we gave it. We will ask any other species the same question. But understand this, we will not allow peaceful beings to be slaughtered while we stand by and do nothing. The chamber erupted in whispered conversations as delegates tried to process what they were hearing. Finally, the speaker called for order. Admiral Chun, what exactly are you proposing? We are not proposing anything, Chun replied. We are simply stating facts. Earth will respond to calls for help from peaceful species under attack. We will hunt down and eliminate those who prey on the innocent. We will protect trade routes and colonies from pirates and raiders. This is not a political decision or a business arrangement. This is simply who we are. And if we refuse your protection, then you refuse it, Chun said with a shrug. We will not force help on anyone who does not want it. But neither will we stand by while peaceful beings are murdered. Representative Cathara stood again. Admiral, your species has upended the entire galactic order in a matter of months. Surely you understand that this creates concerns. Chun nodded. Change is always frightening. But consider this, for the first time in recorded history, the galaxy is safer for peaceful species than it has ever been. Piracy is down 90% since news of Tempest spread. 3 separate aggressive empires have voluntarily withdrawn from disputed territories rather than risk human attention. The Korthic Empire has fled beyond the rim. She gestured to Voltar. The Zephyrians are rebuilding their worlds and their culture, free from the fear of conquest. Their music is returning to their cities. Their children are learning to sing again. And the cost? Asked Representative Thylon. There is no cost to those who live in peace, Chun answered. The only beings who have anything to fear from humanity are those who choose to hurt others. The speaker called for a brief recess, and delegates gathered in small groups to discuss what they had heard. Veltar approached Admiral Chun as she stood alone near the podium. Thank you for coming, he said. I know you do not enjoy politics. Chun smiled, and Veltar was struck again by how different it looked from her combat expressions. Politics are necessary sometimes. People need to understand that humans are not going anywhere, and neither is our commitment to protecting peaceful species. Do you think they believe you? Some do. Others will need time to see that our actions match our words. But that is fine. We have been patient for millions of years. We can wait a little longer. Representative Thylon approached them, moving carefully, as if Chun might attack at any moment. Admiral, he said formally, the Altarian Republic wishes to inquire about the possibility of human protection for our outer colonies. We have been experiencing problems with raiders from the Void Sector. Chun nodded. Send the details to our diplomatic office on Harmony Station. We will review the situation and respond within a standard week. Just like that? Just like that, Chun confirmed. Though I should warn you,